Welcome to another episode of Sports and Songs. We're in season 2, episode number 19 today. I'm your host, Dan, along with our co-host, Andy. Andy, how are you?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Good. Saturday today, April 3rd, and Easter weekend here. For the show. We've got lots of March Madness wrapping up. We've got lots of hockey, college hockey, college basketball, pro baseball. Major League Baseball kicked off their season on Thursday. We're in full swing now. So I see you've got the Mets cap on.
Most teams kicked off this weekend.
Yeah, we had a couple of rainouts. Boston, looks like the Mets.
And the Mets had to cancel because of COVID. A few players of the Nationals got the flu there and had to postpone that series.
And what's your coffee mug? What's your coffee mug today?
I got my Harmon Killebrew mug today.
Nice.
And so the Mets will start their season Monday in Philadelphia.
They got the weekend off.
Yes, I don't know what the schedule is for the makeup of those games. They'll try to throw double headers in there. It's kind of the nice thing about it was the Nationals, so you're close geographically on travel days, so they want to throw something in, or if they want to throw a double header in, or how they're going to do that. If maybe the games will be played up at Citi Field, but the Nationals will be the home team,
Yeah, a lot of mix up to start the season. Now, the Twins had a healthy lead going into the 9th, blew it, lost in 10 innings against the Brewers in Milwaukee.
On opening day, yeah.
Twins spend big bucks to go after the relievers. They now have one of the best relieving bullpens in the major leagues on paper. First game, we get blown save and a loss because of the bullpen.
Now, to a point, though, in the way that loss was because of the whole starter runner on second base bit. I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah,
I don't like it.
It doesn't take much. A couple, a single, and that's it. The game's over. So,
Now, I can see if it was like after the 12th inning you want to do it, but not in the 10th and 11th. You're just, let it go. And I'm not saying that because the Twins lost. I've just never been a fan of that starter runner on second base thing.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. It moves the game along quicker, I guess. But we'll have a lot of games ending in the 10th inning, I have a feeling.
Yes.
Should we start off with a trivia question?
Yes, go ahead. What do you got for trivia, sir?
Trivia this week is going to be focused on women's basketball in the NCAA Division I. Now, Final Four championship game is tomorrow on Sunday. The semifinals were last night. Arizona Wildcats made it to the finals by beating number 1 seeded UConn and Paige Bueckers pretty handily. They had a wire-to-wire finish to lead. This was only, in the program's history for Arizona, the second time ever they've beaten a top 5 nationally ranked team.
Wow.
In their program's history, they've only done it once before, and this was the second time ever. So the championship game will be Stanford Cardinal on Sunday, and both teams from the Pac-10. We'll cover this more in the basketball section, but a Pac-12 national title between two teams, the best two teams in the Pac-12. And so the question is, who did Arizona beat in their other top 5 team they beat on a nationally ranked team? They've only done it twice in their program's history. Last night was one of them. Who was the other one? All right, let's start off with some high school sports, maybe.
All right, yeah. Got some stuff here. We'll start. My graphics up here.
Oh, yes.
High school hockey. Boys tournament's going on. Their championship game is today, the 3rd. It's Gentry Academy, who is the number 2 seed overall, going in against Dodge County. Now, Dodge County made the championships. They had to play the number 1 seed Hermantown on the first game. Hermantown had COVID issues. So they basically the JV team plus like maybe 1 or 2 guys from the varsity team were able to make it. Dodge County ended up winning the game. And then they ended up beating Little Falls the other day. So therefore, Little Dodge County playing in the championship game against Gentry Academy. So that should be a good game there. Gentry's been pretty high ranked all year. They are undefeated going into it. Dodge County was 17-3 coming in, so that should be a good game there.
Wow.
Girls state tournament, and then the boys AA. You got Lakeville South against Eden Prairie. Eden Prairie over Maple Grove in overtime last night, 6-5. Wayzata had a first-round bye in their brackets because Hill Murray, the number 2 seed, had COVID, and they couldn't get a JV team or anybody down in time. So Wayzata got that first-round bye, but that didn't stop Lakeville South from still beating them. But so we got Lakeville South and Eden Prairie then is the night game for the boys tournament. For the girls, we got Proctor Hermantown, the 3 seed. They beat War Road to get into the championship game. And then in the other game, it's Gentry Academy again, and they beat Chisago Lakes. So that's the girls A for girls hockey tournament. And then for double A, it's the Battle of Undefeated. It's Edina 19-0 against Andover 20-0. So that's the 1 o'clock game today at the X for girls hockey. And in that one, Edina got a first-round bye because of a COVID game. Centennial had COVID, or else you'd have 2 20-0 teams going at it. But they're 19-0, they'd have the same amount of wins. So they're 20-0 against 22-0, so that should be a good game there. Boys basketball, we announced all the winners last week of their sections. They did play the first round of games already, so they're down to the final 4 in each section right now. And for boys 1A, it's Hancock and Sleepy Eye St. Mary's, and Hayfield and Badger in the lower tier for A. Boys AA is Minneapolis North and Caledonia, and Waseca and Fergus Falls in the lower bracket. 3A is Alexandria and Richfield, and Minnehaha Academy and De La Salle. That should be a good game in the lower bracket there. And in 4A, you got Maple Grove and Cretin, Durham Hall. Bottom bracket is Shakopee and Wayzata. The girls, they did the same thing too. They had their first rounds of games. So they're down to the final 4 in each conference, or each section. Section A, Belgrade against Sleepy Eye St. Mary's. And in the lower bracket would be Minneota against Mountain Iron. 2A is Albany and Glencoe Silver Lake. And the lower bracket is New London Spicer and Providence Academy. Now, when I say lower bracket, I'm not saying they're worse. I'm just saying as you look at your bracket, the lower bracket. So 3A, Academy of Holy Angels against Marshall, and then Hill Murray and Becker. 4A, the lower bracket game is Rosemont and Centennial. And the upper bracket, like we talked about on the pre-show meeting, in my opinion, is really the championship game. Hopkins and Chaska will be this on April 7th at 7 p.m. Target Center. So Wednesday night, Lenten services are over. You're not going to be at church. I think catching that game would be a good thing to do if I was you. Okay. Moving on.
Should I got a couple notes on high school girls basketball. While you're
go ahead with
up,
basketball.
I mention?
Yeah, go ahead.
That?
Yep.
So I've got some notes on Class 4A. There was 4 undefeated teams coming in to the quarterfinals in the state. 2 of them lost. Farmington, ranked 2nd in the state, got upset by Rosemount. And remember, Rosemount got into the state by winning a forfeit over Lakeville North due to COVID.
Yep.
And so I believe it is Rosemount's ranked like 10th in the state. They're just barely a top 10 team. And they now find themselves in the state semifinal, beating Farmington. Huge upset there. Stillwater also came in undefeated. Chaska beat them. So there's only 2 undefeated teams left. Now they're going to be playing each other. Hopkins against Chaska, the only 2 undefeated teams left in the state of Minnesota, will be playing each other in that semifinal game Tuesday night, 7 p.m. That will be, like you said, that will be the state title game, in my opinion. This is 2 teams that are ranked nationally. Hopkins ranked 4th in the nation in high school girls basketball. Chaska is ranked 20th in the nation for high school girls basketball. Hopkins has 78 straight wins. I think the state record is 79. Hopkins wins that game, that'll be a state record, and they're going to send home undefeated team Chaska. But that's going to be unreal. Try to watch that game, stream it, attend. They may be giving out, selling tickets, maybe 250 at Target Center to go watch that game. I've already got a request in to try to go in person to watch that game. I would like to watch that. The player of the year was announced in the state of Minnesota. The Metro Player of the Year was Maya Naji. She is that junior from Hopkins, the player of the year for Hopkins. They also have Amaya Battle was first team all state, all Metro team, both players from Hopkins. So now Chaska has Mallory Heyer, the University of Minnesota recruit, listed on that first team all Metro team. So you're going to see some good athletes there. Mallory Heyer is going to the University of Minnesota in 2 years to play some D1. They also have Kaylee Van Epps playing D1 next year at Lehigh as she's a senior this year. Great matchup for that game on Tuesday night. So we'll be covering that. Once again, that's a 7 o'clock game. The Rosemount against Centennial matchup is 9 o'clock at Target Center. Once again, Centennial's ranked 7th in the state. Rosemount's 10th in the state. Should be a good matchup. But whoever wins that, I don't think there's going to be any match for either the number 1 or 2 team ranked in the state. Chaska is number 2. Hopkins is number 1 in the state of Minnesota. That's a 1-2 matchup in the semifinal. That's going to be awesome. And that's all I've got.
Now, for basketball, they do rank the teams going to the tournament. So you can say, well, why are Hopkins and Chaska playing early? Because they were in the North bracket. So they were 1-2 in the North bracket. That's why they're playing in the semis for that section. So for those who want to know that.
They did. They broke that down into North against South. And so the South teams is how they broke that up, North versus South. So it ended up that way. But typically you wouldn't have these two playing except in the championship game. Now they get them in the semis. But regardless, both teams wanted to play each other. Chaska had Hopkins on the schedule once COVID and everything came out.
Yeah.
Teams were losing games. They added them to the schedule, and then that got postponed. So the two teams did want to play each other, and this will be battle royal here, king of the mountain, king of the hill.
Yes.
For state of Minnesota. Hopkins, of course, is heavy favorite, but I think this would be a good one to watch.
Okay. Some college tournaments getting into NITs did wrap up. The men's NIT, Memphis ended up beating Mississippi State, and in the women's NIT, it was Rice over Ole Miss. Men's hockey, Frozen Fours in Pittsburgh on the 9th and 10th, and 3 out of the 4 teams are Minnesota-based. We got Minnesota Duluth will be playing UMass, who UMass ended up beating Bemidji State, or else we would have all 4 Minnesota teams in there. And then the other bracket, it's Minnesota State, Mankato against St. Cloud State, who upset Boston College, my other Final Four, my other championship team. So my men's hockey bracket's in the trash. But yeah, so the Final Four on the 9th, Duluth and UMass, then Minnesota State and St. Cloud, and the championship game is the next day. They're in Pittsburgh. Men's Final Four for basketball, Gonzaga and UCLA. I'd like to take a personal note to thank UCLA for beating Michigan. I have an outside chance of coming back and winning my basketball bracket because of that. So thank you to UCLA. And Baylor and Houston. Again, personal note, Houston, please win so I can win my basketball bracket.
Now, Andy, I thought your basketball bracket was toast after the first game.
Well, it was to have Ohio State in there, but then
yes.
I looked at everybody else's in my pool, and I had a bunch of other Big Ten homers in there that all had Ohio State or Purdue or Michigan winning it and that. So I've kind of snuck in here through the back door.
You battled your way back.
Yes. So I think I'm like the only guy that had Houston going to the Final Four, so that's what's helped me out.
Wow.
And I think a lot of others also had Ohio State, and I didn't realize that many guys had it going that deep. One guy had Purdue winning it. So
wow.
I'm backing in the back door here, outside chance. And then, like we said earlier, the women's Final Four is set at Stanford and Arizona, down in San Antonio. I don't think this is the picture they planned on using for their championship. There you go, Stanford Cardinal and Arizona, a 1-3 seed playing. Both from the same conference there. That doesn't happen very often. So good luck to those gals playing tomorrow night.
What time is that game?
It's the 7 o'clock game. It's going to be on ESPN, I believe.
Okay.
college baseball. Gophers are at 3-13 right now. This weekend, Michigan State, and then next weekend they're at Iowa. Gophers are, to say struggling is kind of an understatement this year. The women's softball, Gopher softball is 13-4 in their third stint in the Big Ten right now. Games against Purdue this weekend and Northwestern next weekend. So Lady Gophers doing well there in softball. Bemidji State baseball team is not off to a good start, 2-15. As you see, they lost a doubleheader yesterday, 21-0 and 24-0. Those are baseball scores, not football scores. They finish up with Augustana today, then 2 against Wayne State on Wednesday. Bemidji State softball, 5-13. They got Sioux Falls this weekend and St. Cloud State. Bison football, they had a COVID-called game last week. Next Saturday, they're away at Northern Iowa. Then they have a rescheduled game on the 17th, back at home against South Dakota State. And they'll wrap up their season. The Bison are currently ranked second. So we have spring football going on. Bison fans, there's still some football to watch there. Opening day was this weekend. Couple things, like we talked about the Twins earlier. Mets 3-game series was postponed because of COVID on the Nationals part. There was one odd play in the Dodger game. Cody Bellinger, the runner on first, I think it was Turner was on first. Bellinger hits one opposite field. It's going deep. He hasn't hit an opposite field home run in a year, so didn't know it was going to go out. Turner rounds the second base. He thought the ball got caught. It was actually a home run. So he turns around, takes second, starts heading back to first, and ended up passing Cody Bellinger on the base pass. So Bellinger's out because he got passed up by the lead runner. It was a home run. They let Turner come around and score. So Bellinger's credited with a single and an RBI. So if he loses the home run title by 1, I think whatever bonus he had in that contract comes out of Turner's check. That's
awesome. Yeah, Justin Turner, nicknamed Yukon Cornelius, their baseball wonder.
Yes. The Mets did re-sign Francisco Lindor, or gave him an extension. 10-year, $341 million, which is one more than what Fernando Tatis's contract is, and he did top the present-day value of Mookie Betts' contract. So Fernando Tatis, 10-year extension, and even after they're done paying him in 2032, the Mets will still be paying Bobby Bonilla for 3 more years after that.
Ouch.
July 1st is Bonilla Day. We will cover the Bonilla contract in depth that day. I did some research on it today. It's his contract, if you know a lot about finances, his contract was a Ponzi scheme. He got roped in. Mets got roped in on one of those. It's kind of a sidebar on that. Bonilla's getting like $1 million something a year. Yes, he's getting a lot more in his contract, but in baseball terms, the way they're paying right now, what's $1 million a year to a player? So,
when's the last time he set foot on a baseball field?
Was it 2011? I think.
So $1 million a year, and he's sitting at home. That's awesome.
Yeah, he'll be collecting a check to 2035. His total payments for all that, because part of what he's getting paid is also part of his original contract or end contract with the Baltimore Orioles. He signed a big deal before he went to the Mets, and then I think the Mets pawned him off on the Cardinals for a couple years after that. But so he's getting part of the Oriole money. I think his original contract was like $15 million or some goofy thing, or $25 million, some goofy thing like that. He's going to end up getting close to $60 million when it's all said and done.
Wow.
So, Mets prospect of the week, Sam McWilliams, right-handed relief pitcher. We started as a starter. He's going to play a couple as a reliever this year. He's been through quite a few organizations. 2014, he was an 8th-round draft pick out of Tennessee High School. He was moved by the Phillies to the Diamondbacks in 2015 as a trade, and the D-backs traded him to the Rays to the Royals in a Rule 5 pick. Long story longer. Through time with Tampa, and that he ends up with the Mets. kind of fitting the Mets' MO on some pitchers. He's 6'7". He's kind of a late bloomer when it comes to being a pitching staff. He started out with a 98-mile-an-hour fastball as a reliever in the Rays when he was in the Rays organization. He's still hitting about mid-90s right now. He can throw a curveball and a changeup, but look for him to come up this year. Sam McWilliams, 6'7", tall, blonde kid. Not as blonde as Syndergaard, not as built as Syndergaard, but tall, long hair like that. 6'7", throws mid-90s. That could be a nice relief pickup mid-season there. Let's see. I have my person of the week, and I do have some concerts to go over later. First of all, the person of the week, forget the concerts. So this little meme up here. This is the anniversary of David Lee Roth leaving Van Halen. Much as most of us want to believe this is the reason why, from the movie Wedding Singer, that is not why David Lee Roth left Van Halen. What it is here, Van Halen, a little history on the band first, for those of you who don't know who they are. Jumped into the music scene in the 70s. The music scene didn't quite know what to do with their music at the time because disco was still huge. Punk bands were considered huge rock bands, and the huge rock bands were like Zeppelin was old hat then. Yet Van Halen was something different. Eddie Van Halen rewrote what was possibly on the guitar his signature tapping style. And David Lee Roth on stage was not the typical lead singer you saw in bands. So they were kind of new to the scene. What they were doing is real cutting edge at the time. And it was not a rock genre era at the time. And then suddenly, after 6 years of infighting and differing versions of what the band should be, David Lee Roth was gone, embarking on his own huge solo career. Van Halen recruited ex-Montrose singer Sammy Hagar and continued their streak of success without much of a hiccup. Roth would actually return to the fold more than once in the following decades, showing that he and the brothers Van Halen were a very volatile mix. But what made Roth leave Van Halen in '85 at the height of their fame? I mean, you're on top of the world. You just had the 1984 album. You could do no wrong. And all of a sudden he left. When you have a band named after you like Eddie Van Halen does, you probably have to say in the direction of the music and the image the band leads in. That became more and more clear as their popularity surged. With Roth wanting to keep things loose and fun, Eddie wanted to become more diverse and music-orientated. And I could kind of see that between the two. I mean, first of all, this story I'm doing is not a rip on either one. I loved Eddie Van Halen, great guitarist. I love David Lee Roth. But we all have that. We've all been in those situations at work. A guy you get along with, good away from work, but not at work. That's kind of what their situation was. The band toured their massive 1984 album. That's where the friction between Eddie and David Lee Roth really started. What happened is Eddie Van Halen, well, first of all, some of their earlier albums, they did a lot of covers. And David Lee Roth liked doing covers. Yeah. You can tell that in his solo stuff. He's always got a couple cover songs on there all the time. Eddie didn't want to. He wanted to prove that I'm a guitarist. I'm a writer. I could do things. Right before they recorded the 1984 album, Eddie Van Halen had the studio built on his property. So he kind of had a lot of control. It's all right at his house now. So they recorded it there. This is before the 84 album came out. He named the studio 5150. Hence the album a couple years later with Sammy Hagar.
See. Okay.
So that's where that name came from. It was when David was still there. It was called 5150. Roth, they had creative control over stuff. Eddie was very intelligent. I say was because he passed this last year. Was very intelligent musically. He wasn't just some dumb guitarist like some bands have. He knew what he was doing. There was also some issues coming up. There's rumors that went around that Eddie Van Halen was going to leave and join Kiss for a while because he was friends with Gene Simmons. First of all, Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley both said they never asked him to join. It came up in conversation once, and Gene told him, no, stay where you are. So that came up. Sammy Hagar came in. That broke up later on. Eddie Van Halen, if you go back and read the other stuff, things he said about Dave when he left, things he said about Sammy when he left, Eddie's a very sore loser on that stuff. I think musically he's just real competitive, like a competitive athlete. Rips on his ex-teammate. Eddie was great. Like I said, this is not a bad mouth on him at all. Just the band, they just didn't mix after a while. Their creative differences were going different directions. Both end up still being very successful in what they did. I just kind of wish, I'm kind of glad they didn't do the 2-year reunion tour like some bands do, because you know it's just a pure money grab. I was okay with a few one-offs they did here and there, because that's all like by Stand Each Other was for a night. But yeah, it was creative differences basically is what it came down to. It's why they split up. But that was on this date in music history, if you will. Coming up on stuff like that for Tuesday's show of mine I have on Instagram, page 2, I'll be talking about the retirement of Roy Williams from North Carolina State this year. So basketball fans, hang out Tuesday for that one. Before I get into concerts, sir, and your album of the week, I'll do concerts. They'll do a trivia answer. Is that okay?
Yes.
All right. Concerts coming up. This Friday, the 9th, we'll be at Medina for the Heartless show, Arena and Heartless. And other concerts at Medina, please check their website. Here's some others coming up. May 7th, 2022, Godsmack is going to be at Target Center. They've kind of re-pushed that out again. So it's 93X. Keep an eye on their site if you're into that. Or if you've bought tickets already, keep an eye on that. June 8th, Skyway Theater. These are all rescheduled dates from concerts last year. Sebastian Bach from Skid Row will be playing there, his 31st anniversary tour, doing all of his makeup dates from last year. July 2nd and 3rd, Target Center, Rage Against the Machine. As you can see on their ad there, it was originally supposed to be May of last year, so they're going to try to get it July. July 8th at US Bank Stadium, the tour, again, a rescheduled one from last year. Motley Crue, Def Leppard, Poison, and Joan Jett. Me personally, Motley Crue and Def Leppard, from what I've heard recently, just sound terrible live. I'd probably leave after Poison if I went to that one, but that's me. July 16th, Target Field, Guns N' Roses. That's, again, a rescheduled from last year for their concert there. And that is what I have, sir. That's my little segment of the show today. But your trivia answer, women's basketball.
Women's basketball. The question is, we've got Arizona versus Stanford in the women's Division I basketball championship game on Sunday evening. The question is, Arizona has only twice in the history of the program beaten a top 5 ranked team. Last night against UConn, they did that. They've only done that one other time. The question was, who was that other team? And the answer is Stanford. Last year in February, Arizona Wildcats beat Stanford in overtime. And so they have only 2 wins ever in the history of their program of beating top 5 teams, and they get to try again that on Sunday evening. Stanford, once again, heavier favorite, really good team. They've been to the Final Four. They've been to the championship game 4 times in their program's history, winning twice, and most recently losing the last 2 times they were in that championship game. So they're 2-2 in the national title games. Arizona, once again, never even been to the Final Four. No, this is the first time for them.
Which is kind of weird because the Pac-12 has some good teams. You'd figure over the years Arizona might have had an upset somewhere in there. But getting back to UConn, they've lost in the Final Four the last 4 years. The last 4 Final Fours they've been in, they've lost.
Yeah, they haven't reached. They've gone, to the Elite and 8 and Final Four so many consecutive years, but have never gotten out of that in the last recent years.
And then, as we talked about on the pre-show meeting, Arizona. If you go back to last week's show, I said they're loving everybody else getting attention. Arizona, watch Arizona, they're going to sneak on by, which they have. And even the NCAA didn't appreciate Arizona. Their whole Final Four hype video, they didn't put Arizona in it. And now who's playing in their championship game? Arizona.
Well, that's interesting because the NCAA put together a promotional video for the Final Four showing clips of each of the would be the 4 teams remaining, showing highlights as a promotional video. Well, Arizona watched it and says, we're not mentioned in there once. There's not a single clip in the Final Four promotional video for NCAA D1 women's basketball that shows Arizona. They complained and said, hey, we got dissed. What's the deal? NCAA says, oh, we didn't know that. It must have been a mistake. We'll pull that video down. Now, what I would say is, I don't know how that would be a mistake. By the time that video gets edited and put together, it's got to get the blessing of some management up the ranks to get the blessing before that goes live on social media. How was Arizona not in any of the clips at all? How does that even happen? So they apologize for it, but I find that very hard to believe it would even get that far.
And Arizona was ranked third in that bracket. It's not like there were a 14 seed that snuck all the way through and you have no clips of them from the season or something like that. But even then, you've had how many days to find them? This is
and so what they did is, they said it was a mistake and they pulled that video down. But that is pretty poor. And I think that what they did is motivate Arizona because they played wire to wire. They out-hustled UConn and sent UConn home. Now, earlier in the week, the AP Player of the Year was Paige Bueckers was named. First time ever, a freshman was named the Player of the Year in all of college basketball. That is amazing. And so next year is going to be fun to watch. That whole UConn team is made up of mainly underclassmen. Yep.
And they got the number one high school recruit again this year coming out from Washington, D.C.
Number one recruit in all the nation in high school is going to UConn. Now, I looked, Andy, at the top 10 for recruits in the nation. The 10th best player in the nation is also going to UConn. So we hear all the hype. We hear all the hype of the number one player. They've had that two other times currently on the roster. There's two. Paige Bueckers was the number one recruit in all the nation, and they've also had that other gal who's a junior this year. I think it's a junior this year. Was the number one recruit in all of the country 2 years ago or 3 years ago. So now they're going to get another one. And what isn't mentioned too often of the top 10, the number one and the number 10 player in all of the country are both going to UConn next year. They're going to be tough.
Yep.
Now,
and
last thing I've got for the NCAA championship game for women's basketball is Arizona is only making their 8th appearance in the NCAA tournament in their program's history. So this will be fun to watch.
Yeah, two things about that is you got to remember the women only started going to 64 teams a few years ago. It used to be just like 16 or 24 teams, so there wasn't a big pool to draw from. And on the men's side, Luke Garza from Iowa was men's player of the year for NCAA. So
now I've got two final notes on sports: Twins baseball and St. Paul Saints. Twins will start off with first. They had that first game. Byron Buxton hit a home run that was measured at 456 feet there at Miller Park. And I watched that thing, and he launched that thing. And so we got to remember, Buxton still does have that power for the long ball, but strikes out a lot. Miguel Sano strikes out a lot. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Now, the St. Paul Saints did announce their roster for AAA baseball. They're going to be the AAA affiliate for the Twins this year. I did a show on Wednesday midweek bonus episode on the outfielders, current outfielders for the Twins and the prospects of those coming up. And if you listen to that, it was a 13-minute segment. I would like to say that the Saints, when they announced their opening day, here's the outfielders. And I've covered them all in this little pregame show. This is going to be fun to watch. They got Alex Kirilloff, of course, playing at AAA. Brent Rooker, AAA, fun to watch. Trevor Larnach is at AAA. These are the three top outfielders the Twins have are all going to be playing all on one field for the Saints. And then they have Keon Broxton and Rob Refsnyder on the squad as well. These guys are both veterans in the major leagues, both 30 years old that have had some major league time that are trying to bring back and come back and make it again on a major league roster. So they will be fun to watch. These young prospects will, of course, be fun to watch, but it does seem that the Saints will have one of the better outfielders in all of minor league baseball.
Can any of them play third base for Josh Donaldson?
No, you know what? But Travis Blankenhorn plays third base and outfield, and he is on the team as an infielder. So you may see him possibly called up, but he can play multiple positions, including second base as well. And so I don't know the seriousness yet of Donaldson's injury. Have you heard?
No, I haven't. I just feel bad if I get a decent big name draw. I thought he was a big name. I guess we felt baseball. Josh Donaldson's a big name. Decent player, better than average player, all-star potential, and he's just been injury prone since we got him. And he wasn't really that injury prone beforehand, so it's not like we got damaged goods.
Correct.
So,
and they've signed that, a 4-year deal to bring him in, and nothing really transpired out of that. And now, very, very first game out of the chute, he's somewhat injured.
So it's a hammy around at first, yeah. And getting back to Miguel Sano, I'm not a big Miguel Sano fan to start with. His style reminds me too much of David Ortiz, where it seems like every swing he's going for the fences, he won't go for a base hit. That's just my opinion. But Sano, he's kind of got that stance like a Frank Thomas, where he stands up straight. So he's got the bigger strike zone. But he hasn't made the name like Frank Thomas had, because Frank Thomas was known for having a good eye. Frank Thomas could get the call. Well, Sano doesn't yet because, bat 300 and get an MVP, son, then you'll start getting the call. So if Sano can put up some decent numbers, keep his mouth shut with the umpires and not get a bad rap, he might start getting those calls in a year or so, maybe by the end of this year. But frustration on fans. I hear a lot of fans go, Sano don't get the call. Get some rings or bat 300 or get a batting title or something like that, and you'll get some respect and you'll get the call. I mean, Greg Maddux could put the ball through a Cheerio if he wanted to, wherever you put it. But he earned that. He earned that respect on getting the close call and everything else. Frank Thomas earned respect on getting the balls and strikes calls a batter. So it just comes with time. Be patient.
For those interested, Miguel Sano last season had a 48% strikeout rate. 48% of the time he made a plate appearance, he was striking out. But when he puts the ball in play, boy, it does go. But you're right, he's still young. He's not going to get those calls.
Kind of reminds me of a Jack Clark or a Rob Deere type hitter. All or nothing.
Rob Deere, yes.
Yes, but that's awesome. That's all I got for concerts and music. I said, keep an eye on Medina. We will be there Friday to see Arena with Heartless. So that should be fun. I heard Medina's after this weekend are excited because they can open up more. Email I got from Medina. They're starting the show earlier because now they can stay open later than when they originally had scheduled this concert. So they're all excited that, hey, the bands can play longer now because we could stay open longer from when we booked the concert. So that's a good thing there too. So we're getting back to normal, kind of.
Hopefully that'll be fun. Looking forward to the show. Album? Are we set for the album of the
Yes, album of the week, sir. What do you got?
The album of the week review is The Doors this week. The Doors, 1968 release called "Waiting for the Sun." There it is, sharing it here. "Waiting for the Sun." "Waiting for the Sun" is a third studio album by American rock band The Doors, released by Elektra Records on July 3rd, 1968. Now, July 3rd is exactly 3 years later. Jim Morrison was found dead in 1971, also on July 3rd. So this was their third studio album. It became the band's only #1 album that topped the charts for 4 weeks, including their second U.S. #1 single, "Hello, I Love You." The first single released in the album was "The Unknown Soldier," which peaked at number 39 on the Billboard Hot 100. It also became the band's first hit album in the UK, which peaked there in the UK at number 16. The album cover, if you're looking at there, was photographed by Paul Ferrara in Laurel Canyon. And so Laurel Canyon outside of Hollywood really became a big mecca for music and music fans and bands, drug use, cocaine, and everything else back in the days. But this album, 33 minutes, 10 seconds, coming up on 53 years ago, this album was released. Now, the reason I picked this album is the first two they had, Jim Morrison had so much content, lyrics and songs written. He had a whole collection. They got together as a band and they used that all up on the first album and the rest of it on the second album. There was only one song left that of his inventory, we'll call it, for this album, and that was That was Hello, I Love You, which did really well. But after that, didn't have much material, and they were doing concerts and touring. And so by the time they had the studio booked for this, many of the tracks on this album were actually created in the studio. The production of the album was by Paul Rothchild. This led to multiple takes, and at one point the drummer walked out of a session frustrated at Morrison's behavior. And Rothschild's growing perfectionism on this album was also part of an issue for the band, because each song required at least 20 takes to get it recorded. The Unknown Soldier took 130 takes to get that song done. So they, you kind of book the time, you get in the studio, you don't have your stuff prepared, and now you're writing the music, and it turns out to be your, best album. This album sold, it went in the U.S. platinum, but overall worldwide sold 7 million albums. Here's the track listing. Song 1, Hello, I Love You. Song 2, Love Street. Now, I got some notes here. Love Street. Love Street, Jim Morrison wrote for his girlfriend, Pamela Corson, who also later died in 1974. Love Street was about her. Song 3, Not to Touch the Earth. Assuming it's a song about getting high, not to touch the earth. Summer song, song number 4 is Summer's Almost Gone, followed by the next song, another season mentioned, is called Wintertime Love. Song 6 is The Unknown Soldier, one of only 2 songs on the entire album that uses a bass guitar. The Doors don't have a bass player. Unknown Soldier, they brought in a couple session guys. Very good song, military theme, Unknown Soldier. Side 2, Spanish Caravan. That's the other song that has a bass. Now, Spanish Caravan also has a flamenco guitar on that song. Flamenco guitar, very good song, Spanish Caravan. Song 2 is My Wild Love on side 2. Song 3 on side 2 is We Could Be So Good Together. Song 4 on side 2 is Yes, the River Knows. And the final song on the CD is 5 to 1. 5 to 1 is also a military theme song. Military theme. This was 1968. Songs are really talking about the Vietnam War at this time. Here's the personnel. Vocals, Jim Morrison. Keyboards, Ray Manzarek. Guitar, Robbie Krieger. And drums, John Densmore. And like I mentioned, they had a couple songs in the album that they used some bass, using some session guys.
That's one thing about the Doors. They never had a bass player in the lineup.
No bass player. No
keyboards. Tone on the keyboard, yep.
A drums, keyboard, and a guitarist and a vocalist, but no bass. Now I've got a couple other notes here. I believe I was going to mention, and then we'll wrap up. But this was good. This is good. And like I said, they had used up most of their Jim Morrison's original songbook on their first 2 albums. Consequently, after months of touring, interviews, and television appearance, they had little new material. And so they had to bring in some fresh stuff. Here's the singles that were released in March of 1968, before the album came out, was The Unknown Soldier. That was released in March. And then June, Hello, I Love You. And then the album was released July 3rd. Once again, the album cover there, photo from Laurel Canyon, lots of stories if you look up. There's actually books written about some of the events that went on in Laurel Canyon back in the 60s. It became a hot spot there for the mamas and the papas.
Yep.
A lot of drug use and prostitution and whatnot. Free love, flower
yes.
Really came out, and that really opened the door there. It was just close enough to Hollywood. It was just far enough outside that you felt like you're out in the country, and that's where people ended up buying houses and hanging out and throwing some huge parties. A lot of those from the Mamas and the Papas. Cass Elliot threw some huge parties at their place.
Mama Cass knew how to have a good time.
Mama Cass. So that's the album review. It's 1968, The Doors, Waiting for the Sun review this week. Go out and get it. Good stuff.
Did you ever see the Doors movie with Val Kilmer?
Yes.
I thought it was okay. I was never a big Doors guy. I mean, I'll listen to them if they're on the radio, but I never got that into it. Even when the movie came out, the guy had their research popularity. I listened to them on the radio; they were okay, but nothing to get.
Yeah, they've got some good songs. They were in that LSD, the drug psychedelic items, and very, very good stuff. But I don't find myself popping that in the record player too often, or my Sony Walkman. But
the Sony Walkman.
I do like the history, Jim Morrison's background in the history of these guys. I find more of an interest in their music itself.
Yeah, one of those. The music. The first couple albums were really good because the rest of the band, they had the music, they just needed words, and Morrison had the words. And then they, like you said, they ran out of stuff and
material. And by this time, they ran out of material. They were into drugs and everything else that they actually became more creative with some of that, but they were running on fumes at this point. There's not much left in the tank.
Yep.
That's all I've got for the album review. Anything more for this episode, Andy?
No, just those of you on Anchor. Before this, you heard my bit from Tuesday and Dan's Wednesday. Then you heard the news show. We're going to try that for a while. Let us know if you want the midweek releases separately. Let us know. If not, you always hear them before the new episode. But Tuesdays on Instagram, I'll have, like I said, a page 2, it's called. This week will be about the retirement of Roy Williams from North Carolina. And then Dan has a baseball-themed episode Wednesdays on the YouTube.
That's correct. Once again, feel free to leave your comments below in the area here, and requests as well. All right. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Have a good week.
See ya.